Well, good morning, friends. It's Tracey from Tea Time with Tracey and crew, friends, whatever, folks. And I haven't made a video in a couple weeks. I've just been super busy. We painted the kitchen and just a whole bunch of family stuff. So I wanted to make a video of everything that I read this month, or in the month of April. This is my best reading month yet this year. I read 25 books, which is insane. I don't think I've ever read that many books in 1 month. 3 of them were audiobooks. 2 of them were ebooks and the rest were paperback. So I'm going to go over this. It would take a long time if I got into great detail about them, but I'll just briefly tell you what some of them are. I'm not going to go, well, this will be a big chunk of my video. Well, ta-da! Yeah. I read Numbers. No, not Numbers. Best Friends, one of these Lauren Donner books, the first or second week of the month, and I talked about it in my first week reading wrap-up, and that was book 15 in this New Species series. I had read this series like over 10 years ago, and I couldn't remember it, but the book 15 was the most recent release. I bought it last year, and I didn't get around to reading it until the month of April, and I loved it so much I wanted to start this whole series over again to see if I still loved it as much as I did when I first read it. I forgot what the stories were. I remembered what the world was, but I forgot what the individual stories were, so I've been loving it. I still have 2 more books to read, and then I would have read this whole series. So I'm not going to get into all of what these books are. I might do a specific video on the New Species Lauren Donner series when I've completed that, but the next 2 books in this series, one is Smiley and one is Numbers, I'm going to read in the month of May, so that'll be on my potential TBR, but I have no doubt I'm going to read that. I read all of those in paperback, and they're easy to read. They're not paranormal or anything. They're like genetically altered people with some animal DNA, so they're new species. And yeah, they're just, there's a good amount of plot, character development, world building, and spice, and I love it. And I've just been devouring a book a day, honestly. And I can't do that with all books, but when there's a good balance of all of that all wrapped up in one story, I can just plow through them, and that series does it for me. Some of these books, these are the other books that I've read in the month of April. I put in my first weekly wrap up. I planned on doing that like for every week of April, but it just didn't. I think this was one, Hellfire by John Saul. Loved this book. This is my first John Saul book. This is about a small little off the beaten path town that freeway bypass, so the town's got forgotten. A rich family wanted to rebuild this mill. Lo and behold, there's a deep, dark secret about this mill, and there's some crazy stuff that goes on. It's a horror. Loved it. First great impression for John Saul. I do have some of his other books, and I look forward to reading some more of these books. This is an old book, though. I bought it for $2.99, like secondhand. I think this is like 1983 or something. I forget, but it's an older book and thoroughly enjoyed it. This one, I had the paperback, but I read it partially with ebook too because it was a free ebook. This is book 2 or 3. I forget. Book 2. No, 3. Because there was a prequel, then book 1. This is book 2. It's the Rules of Bennett novel. Very dark, very disturbing. This is supposedly a romance, but it's major triggers in this series. There's torture, there's trafficking, there's non-consent, there's just brutality in this series. And the whole series follows this one young woman who was taken and put into this circle. The head guy takes a shine to her, but doesn't mean that he likes her. It's his own personal play thing, but threatens and absolutely abuses. Not in a, like, oh, you know, I'll abuse you with, you know, feathers. No, it's full on brutality abuse. So major triggers for this. I have 2 more books to read in this series, so I'll probably read one. I don't think I put it in my pile for next month, but I might do that. Because I enjoyed it, but it's not, I don't see how this could ever end on a happy ending. I really, if it does, I'd be like, there's no friggin' way. No way I could ever forgive and forget what this man put this woman through. I don't know. So I haven't got to the end of the series. I can't tell you. Geek Love. I forget if I talked about this in my first week. I should have looked at that video. This follows a family. Well, it follows an older lady. Her recount of her growing up in a traveling carnival, a traveling freak show, and stories of what she went through growing up. It describes her siblings, like her parents, what they did. They decided to try to take substances and different things to have freaks. That's what it says in here, deformities and things. This is taken back in the, like, written back in the day where, you know, the traveling freak show, and people would come out of the woodwork to, who had these deformities, to be in this freak show, to do outrageous things. This got me twisted. I didn't know how to put it into words. Some of the description in this was very poetic, but in a weird way. The description that Catherine done, the way she wrote this book, it was very beautiful, but very heartbreaking and sick and loving, all wrapped up in one twisted up ball. I really enjoyed this, but in a weird way. It took me a few days to process this book, honestly. There's heartbreak, but it's the closest you could get to being one of these people in this traveling carnival. So I can't pretend to know, like, what I would have done if I was in that situation. I don't know. But to see what some of these people did in the hierarchy of different things in this book, yeah, it was mind-bending, complex kind of book. Did enjoy it, though. This one I just finished the other day, The Ruins. I've had this book for a couple years, Scott Smith. I really like this book. The only thing I didn't like about it didn't have chapters. So I listened to part of this on Audible. Because I read about a third of it and I'm just like, there's no freaking chapters, and it was driving me crazy. So I listened to the rest of it on Audible. Well, not Audible. It was an audio book on Everest. Anyways, this follows a group of friends that are down in Mexico. They want to go to the ruins, and they take a bus to, like, off the beaten path, and the bus driver's like, no, you shouldn't go there, and they're like, no, we're gonna go, we want to see it, we want to do it, so the bus driver warns them, but he gets fed up. Fine, go, but you shouldn't go there, it's a dangerous place. So they go into the forest. They see some Mayans in the distance, and the Mayans don't say anything to them, but they're watching them and silently, and they keep following the path, and when they get closer to where these ruins are, some of the Mayans come. They have bows and guns, come on horseback, and they're not speaking English, but they're like yelling at them to come back. Don't go up to these ruins, like, don't go there. That's, the impression that they're getting. But a couple of the people that are in this group, like, I think there's 3 or 4 of them that are actual friends, and then there's 2 that are just in the group, that it's like a traveling group. They came from different places, but they've getting to know each other. One of them is going there to find a lost friend that didn't come home. So that's one dynamic of this little group. Anyways, so it's like, no, I need to go find my friend. I need to go find my friend. Anyways, they cross a line so far and they're not allowed to leave. They're not allowed to come down. So the people, like the Mayans there, hold their arrows up and point their guns, like if they start to walk back, and they're not allowed to leave. So there's only so much they can do. They don't have much water. They don't have much food. They do find the tent that this person's friend supposedly was there before and never came home. And they're supposed to survive. So the interworkings, the relationships, the stress, you know, it's a little crazy. It's a little crazy. But I enjoyed it. It was a really good read. I enjoyed it, except there was no friggin' chapters. This one I did talk about my first weekly wrap up. I won't talk about it much, but it's kind of a mafia crime family. It was okay. It wasn't that great. About a high school couple. He traumatically breaks up with her when she's 16. 10 years down the road, she's a food blogger, and they cross paths again, and he's decided that he wants to keep her. And anyways, it was okay. It's a whole series. This is the first book. I don't know if I'd go into reading more of it. It wasn't that believable for me at all. Watch my weekly wrap-up one that I did if you want to hear my more thoughts about it. It was all right. Same with this one. It wasn't bad. This is by Lexi C. Foss. This was in my weekly wrap-up too. This is a shifter romance. There's werewolves and vampires and humans. Humans is the low person. They have no rights. They're more of a commodity, like for food and carnal urges and slavery and things like that. High up vampire purchases, I forget what even her name is, she has an acquired blood, like a really cherished blood. Little does she know, he is part of a faction that wants to give some rights to the humans, but they have to go about it in a political way. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, the beginning of the series. It was okay. I wouldn't mind reading the next one, but I don't have the next one. I'm not going to go searching for the book 2 unless it comes on sale somewhere secondhand. It was all right. More thoughts in that weekly wrap-up if you want to. I read this one. This is in the weekly wrap-up too. This is more of a slow gothic horror. Nothing too gruesome, but very atmospheric. And I really enjoyed this. This would have been great to read in the fall for me. It just seemed like a cloudy, gloomy, isolated island with an old, this is like old times, lanterns and candles, manor and tapping and potential witchcraft and things like that. Enjoyed this. This one, the Confederacy of Dunces. I loved this book. I had to process this too, because this is from, I think this might have been from 1980. The author of this, John Toole, he had committed suicide years before this book. His mother got this published. And this is a weird kind of dark, obtuse kind of comedy. It follows Ignatius around, and he's one of these people that just, everybody is wrong. He knows everything. He's not going to work here because it's not good enough for me. He stays at home, lives with his mom. He treats his mom like crap. Nobody can do right with him. Like, he's always right no matter what. And it's just outrageously bonkers when circumstances go through. I highly recommend this. It's weird though. It's not like a laugh out loud kind of thing. It's almost like he is so friggin' unbelievably crazy. It's funny. I found it more funny about 3 or 4 days after I finished this book. I was like, oh my gosh. It's just, he's so, I can't even put it into words. Oh, Ignatius. Loved it. Confederacy of Dunces. I read this one, Sicko. I've had this for a couple years. This is going longer than I was hoping. By Emma Jones. I read a few other books of hers in her motorcycle series. I haven't finished that series, but they're okay. This one is about a rich, super rich family. And this young woman, she was adopted when she was younger. She was like a foster sister to the boy that was in this family. And he was extremely protective of her up until, like, I think she was 15 or 14. Him and his friends were extremely protective of this girl. I forget what her name is. And, but this family is like billionaire, like crazy rich. Anyways, all of a sudden when she's 14, 15, the boy, like her foster brother, who she was so close to and depended on and seemed to relate to her, he just up and left. No word, no nothing, no whatever. And she was heartbroken because she always had him in her corner. Anyways, 2 or 3 years down the road, he comes back out of the blue. He's the head of a motorcycle group. She's older. He's 22. So I think she's 18 at this point. He's like the head guy of a motorcycle group, and he finds out crazy things that has gone on with her. Like she's trying to go to university. She's pulled away from him. She's hurt that he left her. And the crazy stuff that she went through is crazy. But part of this book was like so unbelievable too. Like, I'm no expert on motorcycle clubs, MCs, but I cannot imagine a 22-year-old wielding the power that this guy had in this book at all. Like, I know 22-year-olds. I have a 22-year-old. I have an almost 30-year-old. 22-year-old running a big major motorcycle club. Anyways, this guy comes back. He finds out what's going on with her. And he wants to exact revenge, which he does. A lot of people say this is super dark, and it is. It is dark. Like, the abuse that this woman went through is unacceptable. But anyways, it was okay. It was all right. It wasn't like, oh, this is the darkest book I ever read and I loved it so much. It was all right. It was okay. So, this one, Anya or Anaya Allborn, this is a cult book. I forget if this is my weekly wrap up too. This follows a reporter or an author who was offered the chance to interview a cult leader that has been in prison for years, and this cult leader never talks to anybody at all. There's a thing the twist is he has to live in the house where the cult massacre, there was some sort of massacre there, took place. So he can interview this guy, but he has to live in the house that the cult leader lived in. And this author is also in a struggling relationship and wants to try to make a break. He's a struggling author. So him and his teenage daughter, he was going to take the teenage daughter for the summer and go and interview this prisoner, and his daughter is there too. Anyways, crazy things start happening. I really enjoyed this book. It's not it's not scary, but it's a bit twisty and weird. I think it's a good take on a cult book, different than I thought it was going to be. And I've read I think I've read 2 other books of hers, and she's one of these authors that have kind of an ambiguous ending. I enjoy that personally. You need to make it however you think it's going to go. And so far that happens in every book. But, I mean, you could take it for what it is, but then there's always that little thing at the back of your head. Well, is that really as straightforward? I don't know. Anyways, I enjoyed it. This one lived up to the hype, the crying hype. I did listen to this on Audible. It was a free audio on Audible or Everest, I forget. I love Tilly Cole. This is my weekly wrap-up. This actually did make me teary. I don't think I've ever felt quite as emotional reading like ever before. I've read some emotional books, don't get me wrong, and I felt like hurt. Maybe it was the audio that made me. If I ever hear Poppy Min again, it makes me like, ugh. This is a YA too. All the Tilly Cole books that I have are her dark, twisted, trigger-filled books. This would be a trigger, but not for the triggers in her other books, for sure. Like, I have her motorcycle one. What is that one called? And her Deadly Virtues one. And Lord of London Town and the Scarred Souls one. Like, crazy triggers. This is a YA, and I'm not a big YA person, but this follows a couple of kids at the very beginning, and there's heartbreak throughout this book. Like, it's not just like, oh, at the end or the middle or the beginning. There's, roller coasters, and it follows these two young people up until, like, from their 4 and 5 year old up until 17, 8 year old. And then it ends, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want to get emotional, but really, really enjoyed it. Last but not least, I read Wild by D.D. Prince. I started this book last year sometime, and I only got like 50 pages in. And not that it was bad, I don't know, something happened. Anyways, I went back to finish it, and this is paranormal shifter romance for sure. This is a straight on shift into a wolf kind of book, whereas those Lauren Donner ones, they don't shift, they just have animal DNA. Anyways, this follows a young woman and her friend going away to a cottage for a weekend. She doesn't really know this friend that well. She's a co-worker, and anyways, it's a bust because this co-worker of hers invited 3 other strange guys to come and party with them. And the main girl is not comfortable with that because I'm not just going to go have sex with strangers and be all party and share this and that. No. So she leaves, takes the car, offers to take her friend with her, but her friend was mad that she's leaving. Like, no, I'm staying. I'm having a good time. So the main girl leaves, and it's a stormy, rainy day, and she ends up taking a back road and goes off the road. Next thing she knows, there's a big black wolf circling her car. She's in the ditch. It's nighttime. And she's scared to death. There's no reception, nothing like that. Next thing she knows, where that wolf was standing, there's a giant muscled man that was standing there naked. And it goes from there. He ends up kind of taking her, and he's not used to being in people form because he had a traumatic thing that happened years ago. So he's more comfortable staying in wolf form, but he smelled her and felt like it was his mate. And there's a whole lot of smut in this. Triggers for this, for sure. The story was good. There's quite a lot of smut in this, though. A little more than needed, in my opinion. But at least there was story here, too. It's not like all smut, and it's just like, you can only do this so many times before it's like, all right, I get it. I get it. But I did enjoy it. This is the beginning of a series. I would like to read the other books in the series. I don't have any more now, though, but so I'll look at getting those someday. But yeah, and they're quite big chunkers. So that one. I need to go get 2 books I DNF'd, and I'm not a big DNF'er, but just a minute. All right, there was 2 books I had in my list I was going to try to read from. One is this, another Adelaide Forest one. wrong. It's a tiny little book. Extremely taboo. I only got 49 pages into it. And I might finish it someday, but I was like, this is so not my thing. Not like it was a trigger, but I'm just like, it's so unbelievable. Like, so unrealistic. Like, if I know going into a book it's going to be unrealistic, like I read paranormal stuff and shifter stuff. Like, I know. But this is about a young woman who's like 18, who grew up with just her dad. She didn't have her mom in the picture. Her dad's best friend, who she called his dad's best friend her uncle since she was a baby, a child. Grew up with her dad, and her dad's best friend was a big part of her life. Anyway, she's going to college. Just, that's where I'll leave her. Her uncle, not by blood, but her uncle, you get the internal dialogue from him and how he had inappropriate thoughts about this little girl growing up. And as she got older, like, he had to resist because he knew it was wrong. But, you know. Anyways, he has these little kinks, so he belongs to this club. His father does too, but he wants a relationship, or no, he wants to book an appointment with another willing participant in this sex club to act like it's non-consensual, but actually it's consensual because they're just playing. They're just role playing. The thing is, he wants to not know this person. He doesn't want this person to know him. They'll just set it up out in the community. You be here at this time, and this is what you look like. And, he's going to kidnap her and have his evil way with her. Anyways, he wanted a woman he described who looked like this man's daughter. The father didn't pick up on that, though. So the father wasn't aware that he had these feelings towards his 18-year-old daughter. And it just so happens this young woman is going to college or university or something, and she goes to this coffee shop because she's friends with the person that works there. And she's sitting at this table where, unbeknownst to him, she was going to be, but he made this arrangement for this, this party, this woman from this sex group was going to meet him. Lo and behold, when he gets there, he doesn't see this woman. He sees this daughter of his best friend who looks like the woman who was supposed to be there. And he's second guessing, like, is she part of this group and I don't know it? Is she doing this? Because this woman isn't supposed to know who he is, and vice versa. And he thinks that she's part of this sex group. So he's all on board with going to take her to do this non-consensual thing. I read books with non-consensual stuff in it. I do. Not that I want that to happen. That's a good thing. It's in a book. The way it's laid out in this, it's so short. It's like bam, 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 bam. This is why I don't like novellas very much. Like, I want some meat to the bones. Anyways, he takes this girl, kidnaps her. She doesn't see who he is. He has a mask on. He throws her in the trunk and ties her up and brings her to the basement of this sex club, into an isolated room. So, people don't look twice when he has this girl thrown over his shoulder. Like, this is what, it's all consensual adults. Only this young woman has no idea what's going on. She thinks she's actually being kidnapped by somebody and who's going to kill her. Anyways, he throws her on the bed in there and tears off his mask, and she's in shock and saying, "What are you doing, Uncle so-and-so? What are you doing?" And he still thinks that she's playing the part of non-consensual. I'm not going to go any further than that. I'll skip over the dirty bit. This all happens within 50 pages of the book. Anyways, after it's all done, she's like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. You know what I mean? He doesn't realize until after the dirty deed is done that she was actually telling the truth, that she was not part of this group. She didn't want this. He didn't believe her at all. Like, until, I forget what the proof, oh, he got a text or something, or a call from the club upstairs to say you backed out, you didn't want to do this, or, you know, and then he realizes he actually did assault his niece, even though it's not a blood niece, brutally. Anyways, he realizes what he's done. He feels bad, but he agrees to drive her home. And where it got me, she was like, I just want to forget this ever happened. I'm not going to tell my dad because it would break his heart. And I just don't want to ever talk about this again. And the uncle says, oh no, you're mine now. I'm coming to get you tonight. And I was just like, for fuck's sakes. If somebody was traumatically abused like that, it wouldn't just be shoved off. I'm just like, and then she's all worried that her uncle's going to come in and she's okay with it. I would be like, no, sir, no friggin' way. Anyways, that's why I had to stop it. I was just like, it's so ridiculous the way that she reacts to this. Like, yeah, she's hurt and she doesn't know what to think about it, but she's not going to tell her father. She's not going to tell the police. She's not going to make any kind of stink. And he's going to dictate to her that, no, you're mine now. I'm going to take you. And, you know, I'm assuming this turns out to be a happily ever after, but in such a short amount of time, I could handle a book if it was like, I don't know, this, and there was time to process grieving and, you know, that sort of thing. Maybe, but it just went from 0 to 150 pages and I just couldn't. I've spent too much time talking about that book. I might finish it someday, but not now. Richard Layman. I know this is an old book. I don't know, like, it's an old book. I don't know how many pages I got into it. Not super far, and I think I will finish this sometime, but I've read books of his and they're cheesy and raunchy and, you know, ridiculous, but I was enjoying it up to a point, and then this followed a couple that were trying to get it on, but they didn't have any condoms. And so he's like, I'll go to the store. It's 10 minutes away. I'll be back. He's not back in 10 minutes. So she gets worried. She goes looking for him. His van's still at the store. And she's like, where is he? You know what I mean? They're only fresh in a relationship. He didn't come back. And lo and behold, a stranger approaches her, and he's a young guy. She's a teacher. It's one of her students, or a previous student, and said, oh, I seen him. He went down this way with a friend. So he ends up driving her. And the young guy, he's a creep. He keeps driving and driving and driving and driving. And she's like, well, let's go back now. She's not freaking out, but she's like, no, I'm ready to go back now. Well, no, you just keep driving with me. Anyways, he assaults her briefly and she makes an escape. And she runs into this diner. And instead of, in this diner's full of people, the young guy is parked outside of the diner. And this happens before cell phones and everything. It happens like in the 80s or something. But she doesn't have a shoe on. She's all beat up. And she just goes in the bathroom to clean herself up. And she was just going to wait him out for him to leave. Like, I was just like, idiot woman. I could handle it if she went in there and wanted to call the police or tell somebody, he's out there waiting for me and I was assaulted. No, she was just going to go in there quietly and clean herself up and just wait for him to go, and then she'd walk home. Like, and I'm just like, okay, all right, that's it. That's I can't. I might someday, but I had too many other books I wanted to read. And that's it. This one pissed me off. This one, I was just like, oh my God, no. And then the rest of them. So I need to stop talking. This is super long and I didn't mean it to be, but I had a fantastic reading month. Even though I did DNF those, and I don't generally DNF, but I just got so wrapped up in those Laura and Donner New Species books, I was just like eating them one after the other, after the other, after the other, and loved it. So, anyways, I'm going to say peace, love, and happiness today and every single day. Please like, share, and subscribe if you so choose, but if not, that's okay too. I still love ya. I still want all the happiness in the world for each and every one of you out there. I certainly do. I really, really honest and truly do. Yes, I do. So, okay, guys, with that, I'm going to say have a good night or have a good morning, and I will see you sometime soon. Bye. Boink.